sometimes there are moves that are strangely absent from certain Pokemon's move pools, just design-wise, but then it winds up having an effect on the competitive scene. So something like Snorlax not having Slack Off, which we'll mention, of course, which is the most obvious case. Sometimes it gets fixed over time, like eventually Gengar and Hydreigon did get Nasty Plot, and Flareon got Flare Blitz after it was already too terrible to be used even all the way down in NU, or PU by that point, actually. But yeah, there are some moves that I think are very obvious design additions that would also be good competitively. So we're going to go over a couple of those today. This list is by no means exhaustive, like at all. So if there are any suggestions, I would love to hear them in the comments. Also, I should mention that I have a Patreon in the description if you want to give me your money because you like me, or you're just that nice, or both. Yeah. There are several Pokemon in the replay on the screen that fall into this category. This was not randomly chosen. So first of all, Reuniclus alongside other users of Focus Blast. Namely for me, things like Alakazam and Gengar and even Hydreigon. I think if you can learn Focus Blast, you should learn Aura Sphere. I think it just makes sense, thematically. Design-wise, whatever, all that. And competitively, it's a no-brainer because Focus Blast would be insanely spammable were it not for its horrible accuracy. Fun fact, if you hit 2 Focus Blasts in a row, you are actually lucking your opponent, technically, because it's 49%. Yeah, Focus Blast is famously terrible, and Aura Sphere always hits. It's the complete opposite of Focus Blast in that regard. And it also has good power, but not so good that if you hit it all the time, then you're going to break the metagame. First of all, if Alakazam hitting Focus Blast every time would break the metagame, then maybe Alakazam is a problem in general, just as an idea. But here, with the drop to 90 base power, I mean, compared to Focus Blast, that's nothing. That's very easy for all sorts of targets to survive. So it's a perfectly fair trade-off. Something like Hidden Power Fighting is just way, way, way too weak. I mean, it'll bounce off of something like Heatran, even Tyranitar, whereas Aura Sphere is right in that nice sweet spot. So it should absolutely... I mean, maybe not every Pokemon that learns Focus Blast, but I think a vast majority of them you could make a serious case for. Like Alakazam, for sure. Like the Psychic types in general. And... I don't know, I think you could make some arguments for the ethereal aspects of ghosts with Focus Blast as well. So, I mean, even something like Mismagius, which doesn't learn Focus Blast, I think that would be very fitting for Aura Sphere. I mean, it already gets things like Mystical Fire, so... yeah, I think that's a very obvious one. And competitively, I mean, it doesn't really change much, it just makes it more consistent to use these Pokemon, and I think it's good when Pokemon have consistent options rather than forcing, obnoxious dice rolls, both in dealing with and using them. That's a very nasty two-sided coin. So that's the first one. The second one in this battle is Kartana not having Double Edge. Now, I have liked Return on Banded Kartana before, because one of Kartana's most popular Z moves is Giga Impact, turned into a really strong Breakneck Blitz, because normal coverage is really nasty for it against a lot of its common checks, like Zapdos and the Megalodion, well, both Megalodies, and Tornadus Therian being the most common one. But that, of course, needs you to run a Z Crystal, and you get one shot at it, pretty much. Giga Impact is not a move you want to be spamming if you can help it. So if you're running Band Kartana, which is a great set, you can still do pretty much the same thing, get that coverage in there, and use Return. I mean, you don't love losing any of your moves, but it's definitely fantastic coverage to throw out, just because it also is very strong neutrally, and on a Pokemon as strong as Kartana, when you hit stuff neutrally, then you're hitting it really hard. So something like it's tougher for it to be pivoted around with resists, especially because Kartana is so fast against offensive teams. Even something like an offensive Heatran switches in, and to my memory takes like 35 or something. So with rocks, maybe not 35, but with rocks, it's definitely not taking it comfortably, for sure. You don't have to worry about Greninja pivoting into your Smart Strike or something. And, I mean, just look at if there was a Banded Kartana with return in this game. Like, the only resist is Heatran, and that's not exactly a comfortable switch. I mean, this one has leftovers, to its credit. But, look, you got two checks, Mega Latios and Tornadus Therian, and neither of them like taking that normal hit. So return is quite strong. And one of my favorite things about it is also that it is Kartana's, or Banded Kartana's, best move by far against Mega Charizard Y, so you can use Kartana to threaten Zard Y on double switches, whereas otherwise it'd be the other way around. But yeah, return smacks Zard Y really hard. And this is where Double Edge comes in. I cannot fathom why Kartana doesn't have Double Edge. I mean, it's a paper, it cuts, it's a physical attacker. What is the issue? I don't know why it doesn't have it at all. And it would pretty much be the same thing as return, but, even stronger. I mean, you really plow through Zard Y with that one. And, I mean, offensive Heatran really hates switching in. So, and, I mean, the recoil, yeah, that would be annoying, but very, very worth it. Because you're only using it when you're going to get some big returns out of it. It's not like it's your stab and you're hurting yourself just to throw out your strongest attack. So... yeah, the normal coverage against so many things in the tier is just... Well, I'll stop before I start repeating myself. But yeah, I guess even if Kartana doesn't have Double Edge, and I have no idea if this has been rectified in Gens 8 or 9, I don't think it has, though, then I guess Return, or Frustration, if you hate your Pokemon, is good on CV Kartana. So... yeah, there's that one. A couple, since we already went over Aurasphere. Here's two. I mean, the Snorlax Slack-Off one, that's the most obvious thing in the world, design-wise. So, just mention how it would be so different. I mean, it wouldn't even necessarily be game-breaking. Just the fact that you don't even have to fit it into your moveset. You can just make your opponent have to respect that you might be able to heal your moves off without using rest, thus making it still threatening. So you don't know that it doesn't have it, for example. So that kind of uncertainty can be big. But I mean, even just the certainty that you can switch your Snorlax into something like a Zapdos Thunderbolt and Sand, to take a Gen 3 example, and heal it off, that's really big. Suddenly, you become much more adept at dealing with things like offensive Calm Minders, or like offensive Starmie over the course of a game. And it's not going to be, unreasonably difficult to deal with either, I don't think. Not with the prominence of Sand and Spikes, and, Snorlax not having many resists, or any resist to speak of in Gen 3. But I mean, these kinds of things carry over to the other generations as well. And it's still going to get battered away at really badly. And it also has to give up a move slot in order to heal reliably. And Snorlax is already kind of famously struggling for coverage as it is, with 4 attacks. So... now, in the example of Gen 5 UU, which this replay is from, then yeah, it might be a little too good. It already tends to be a lot to handle with just Protect as recovery on offensive sets. But I think in most other gens, then it wouldn't be too bad. You might get like an actual niche out of it in Gen 4 OU or something. Well, I mean, talk about passive damage being a problem there. And sorry, I just got a very interesting text message. Okay, that can wait. But I really don't want to wait for it because it seemed interesting. Anyway, so yeah, you know what else is interesting? Slack off Snorlax. Yeah, so wow, we just saw a Snorlax KO another Snorlax. Wonder how that would have gone if they had Slack. I mean, this is a... You know what I actually saw an interesting argument against this recently? Is that Snorlax is too lazy to actually slack off, and that it only exists in, like, a state of, like, complete, sleep, I guess, or complete rest, or like being active. I don't know how much I buy that argument, considering that, even when it's awake, all it wants to do is just eat so it can, go back to sleep. But it was an interesting counterpoint. Anyway, the main example here is Flygon. Now, Flygon did finally get Dragon Dance after a million generations, but what's interesting for me is that it still hasn't gotten Stealth Rock. Now, I'm not even going to go the full make it different Garchomp route and suggest giving it Swords Dance, because that would be, maybe... I mean, I think it would make sense, but you know what? I'm willing to concede that one. But Stealth Rock, I mean, come on. It's like... how many other ground types are there that don't learn Stealth Rock? Like, not a lot. I know in Gen 4... when the idea was first thrown around, it was the only ground type in OU that doesn't learn rocks. I guess while we're at it, give Stealth Rock to like Gastrodon and Quagsire gets it now, right? I don't know. In Gen 9, I know that the Quagsire line got like Spikes and T-Spikes or something else. So maybe that has it. And I know the same happened for Gastrodon. But yeah, I think Flygon definitely deserves it. I wonder if it got it in Gen 9. But, I mean, giving it to Flygon in Gen 9 when there's, like, boots and everything, like, come on, we needed it early on. Again, like, this is not a game breaker. Like, DD Flygon in Gen 4, like, okay, I could see that might be a little on the obnoxious side. But, like, rocks, I mean, come on, that's just, especially because, again, it's like Slack Off Snorlax in the sense that, yes, it's a very, very good utility move, but it does not come at no cost. Flygon does not exactly have... It's not like a Terrakion situation where you have close combat and Stone Edge and, you set your other two move slots on fire. It doesn't matter. You could show up with just CC and Stone Edge and you'd be fine. It's not like that at all with Gon. I mean, not to say that it has 4 move slot syndrome or anything, but it's not, like, completely for free, is what I'm saying. It would also be an interesting case of a Choice Scarfer that is a very good rocker, because it famously forces switches, which is why it's so good at using U-turn, and before it wants to U-turn, it can also get up rocks. But it would also have a lot of interesting utility sets. We might finally get some use out of, like, a bulky Flygon. Well, I mean, I don't know if, like, bulky Flygon isn't just worse Gliscor most of the time. But, I don't know, it does have some unique attributes going for it, for sure. So who's to say? Either way, I think Flygon should get rocks. I think it's very obvious. Here's an interesting one. Now, this one, I don't know that I can justify design-wise because of its, like, stubby arms. But on the other hand, Tyranitar has no problem using Fire, Ice, and Thunder Punch. So I'm kind of thinking, hey, what if we give it Sucker Punch? Now, design-wise, I think it makes sense. I think, does Umbreon get Sucker? Umbreon does get Sucker Punch, I'm pretty sure. So if Umbreon can get Sucker Punch, unless I'm horribly misremembering, in which case I'm very sorry. But, don't send me to the old folks' home just yet. But I seem to have some... I must be confusing it with Payback. I don't think Umbreon gets Sucker Punch. I take that back. I'm so sorry. But yeah, I think Tyranitar is a pretty good claim to it. There are definitely Pokemon that, like, get Sucker Punch without actually having, like, fists, though. Like Honchkrow. Honchkrow has wings. How's it going to punch? And I realize that a Sucker Punch is not necessarily a literal punch, but that's just more argument for Ttar to have it. And its competitive impact... Now that would really be something. I mean, such strong priority on Ttar, especially because if it gets it any gen before 7, that it's 80 base power, which is massive, and it would, and even in Gen 7, 70 base power stab priority is nothing to sneeze at. So yeah, I think that would be very interesting, and I mean, it forces a like on a DD set in particular. You really, I mean, you can still play around both DD and Sucker Punch with status, but, you don't want to attack, or like Roar and Whirlwind, but, I mean, Ttar is also a very good user of Taunt, so, I don't know. I think it could make use of it. There's another Dark-type move I was thinking for Ttar, but it wasn't as urgent. But what I also wanted to float, just, while I'm at it, is Swords Dance Ttar. And I know that's kind of gratuitous, but I mean, I think, is it really, though? I mean, Ttar is so slow. It's, it's kind of weird, because I would never say Ttar's a bad wall breaker in any gen you care to name, but it's kind of weird in that sometimes if you wanted to, really bust through slower stuff, you have to rely on craftier stuff like taunt or, mixed coverage stuff, and, because CB can get, or Choice Band, can get played around with Protect to obnoxious degrees, and DD doesn't quite give you that power boost, because if you're trying to boost through slower Pokemon, then if you want that +1, you want it immediately. Because if you're going to spend a turn, you want more than just, a +1 attack. And +1 attack is fine if you have it instantly with CB, but then you have the Protect issue. So I think it would be fair, because again, it's still so slow, it has no shortage of very exploitable weaknesses, ground and water and fighting, grass, bug, especially in newer gens of the U-turn, my god. Steel, there is no shortage of ways to hit Tyranitar very hard. So, and not that it's not bulky, of course, but I mean, come on. And this, hitting it super effectively thing extends to it setting up in the first place. Now, I know that's, that's being a little unfair. Like, hey, let's get a set up. It's Ttar. But I think that it has just the right blend of being slow and, it's not too much of anything. Like, it's going to be strong, of course, obviously. But even +2 Ttar, like, if you've ever been in a situation where Ttar has 2 DDs, it's starting to really become an Oko machine for sure. But not to unreasonable degrees. And if it has that instant +2 attack, it's not boosting its speed. So I think having something to punish such pure, slow teams would definitely be a bonus, especially because it's not going to be overbearing. A lot of defense, plays at its best, across multiple generations by being more offensive. So and this would definitely apply to SD Ttar. You could even run SD DD Ttar and boost according to the situation, but then you're messing with your coverage. So, yeah, I think if I had to pick between one of Sucker Punch or SD Ttar in terms of balance, I think SD would probably be fair. Sucker Punch, that sounds unbearable. Yeah, that sounds really like it opens up some really potentially obnoxious avenues for dealing with it. Although I will say, if you're dealing with it defensively, then you don't really care about Sucker Punch. But, it suddenly becomes so much better against offense, because Ttar's deal is, sand is amazing and everything about it is amazing, but against offense it can sometimes feel like kind of a drag just because slow, all those weaknesses we mentioned. But with Sucker Punch, it's a whole new ballgame. I mean, Sucker Punch Pursuit mind games on Tyranitar, I mean, it's bad enough when Bisharp chooses to run Pursuit, but on Ttar, nightmarish. So, yeah, I'm very glad that is not a thing. I can't remember what that other dark move I wanted to give Ttar was, but yeah. I also had something in mind for the Slow Twins, but then I was thinking about it. I was like, I don't know, they pretty much have everything already. I don't really want to give them a hat. I was thinking maybe Wish. That might be kind of cool, but yeah. Yeah, this game was heartbreaking to see, because yeah, poor Dexa. Oh yeah, that was really really awful. Yeah, anyway, so the final one, okay, and this one, I'm pretty sure this is, whenever people think, oh, what moves should Pokemon get that they don't have, then the alarm bells and whistles start going off in people's heads and go, Aerodactyl! Aerodactyl! Should get a Brave Bird and Head Smash. And I mean, yeah, it's very, very obvious. It has Rock Head and, well, Mega Aerodactyl for those generations that it wouldn't really use. No, I think it'd use Brave Bird. Head Smash might be a little much, because that recoil is really nasty, but I don't know, the power might be worth it. Especially for more aggressive teams. If you're using it like a more balanced team that anchors on Mega Aero, maybe not. But, for more offensive stuff, then absolutely. I mean, the wall breaking is just off the charts. And even like regular Aerodactyl in a number of generations, you just slap Rockhead on there. And again, it's It's going to be crazy strong. There's no doubt about that. But its attack is not so screamingly off the charts that it suddenly becomes like game breaking. Maybe it would be, I don't know. I think that'd be pretty cool. Arrow kind of rocks. But it's, I can't see it happening, especially because, again, it's so frail. Your best bet is like getting a sandstorm going and switching into some special attacks in Gen 4 or 5. And I think that'd be cool. I would like to see that. But even that, it'd be a great Volcarona check in Gen 5 in Sand, for example. But yeah, I think it would be fair. I mean, look, Rock's weakness and that level of frailty, it's hard to imagine it being truly overpowered. And it would be nice as a threat. It would be, Gen 5, I mean, suddenly you have a viable threat naturally faster than Alakazam, even has Pursuit. Hey, that might be the solution to all our tiering troubles in Gen 5. Just kidding. But, I mean, it checks Volcarona, it checks Alakazam, and Sand, it pursuits it. Why does it need a Brave Bird and Head Smash for that? Why are we not using this now? Kidding. Well, maybe not. But yeah, Arrow is definitely worthy of Head Smash and Brave Bird. I mean, it's not even just like a competitive thing, like make it better. It's like, yeah, this thing absolutely should have it in terms of design. Like, how is there any argument against it? It's the most obvious thing ever. It's just one of those like oversights, like Flareon, Flare Blades. I don't know, like, because I don't know, maybe Game Freak are just thinking we've gone too long. We should have, but it's been too long. Now we have to just commit to it and double down and just never give it to it. And it's like, really, and this is where the real life lesson comes in, that it's never too late to admit it. I mean, unless you value your ego more than doing the right thing, in which case therein lies the conflict. Yeah, I bet you weren't expecting such a poignant piece of profundity today, were you? So, or not, at least not from this. I don't know if you have a philosophy class later or something. So that's pretty much everything for me, unless I think of something. I was thinking about something for Cobalion, because I think Cobalion is one of those Pokemon that's like good, always like a cool lower tier poke, but I wish it had just something that made it better. I mean, its move pool is already so good, Stealth Rock, Taunt, Volt Switch. I don't know. I was thinking of like, yeah, I don't know. I think it. That's it. Meteor Mash. I think Cobalion, design-wise, I don't know that it really makes sense. But then again, Lucario gets Meteor Mash. So I don't know that it really needs to make any more sense than this is a Steel type. In a similar vein, Meteor Mash Scizor sounds kind of cool. But yeah, I think Meteor Mash Cobalion needs it more, just because Iron Head's power, yeah, 30% flinch, yeah, it's strong enough. But, I mean, could use the boost, for sure. Because its attack stat is not the best, far from it. So I think it would be fair, and again, far from overbearing, in pretty much any tier you can name. So, yeah, I mean, look, if Cobalion's going to be an issue with Meteor Mash, I would say it would probably be an issue with Iron Head either way. I can't really imagine, I mean, maybe that's foolish of me, but, I think, like, it would be Cobalion as a Pokemon overall that would be the issue, as opposed to, specifically, oh, it's fine, oh, now it has Meteor Mash. I don't see the power, especially because, yeah, in Gen 6, they lowered Meteor Mash's base power to 90. So yeah, absolutely, this is just a 10 base power boost. I was still thinking of it in Gens 3 through 5 terms, where Meteor Mash is 100. But no, I think if you give it to it in Gen like 6 and later, and it's 90 base power, then absolutely, yeah. So, yeah, give Cobalion Meteor Mash. So, yeah, that's pretty much it from me, I think. Thank you for watching / listening if you have me on in your car. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one. I'm thinking of what more to do in this kind of thing. Like, I don't know how to title it yet, but it would be something like, what if Pokemon got moves that they get later, but in an earlier generation? Like, for example, Flare Blitz Flareon is one, DD Flygon. But another one I had in mind is Celebi gets Thunder Wave in Gen 4, and I think Gen 3 would be very different if it got that move then. So that's just one thing on my mind. So yeah, I might do that one next. I think that would be cool. And for those of you who are following the movie exploits, thank you so much, and check the pinned comment. Oh, and the movie channel, very, very soon. I think with the next video I upload here, then I will be announcing the movie channel. So thank you, and will see you in the next one.